Hey everyone, and welcome to Sasquatch Theory. In today's episode, we have a two-part interview, and our first guest is Mark. He's from South Dakota, from the Black Hills, and he claims he was picked up in his sleeping bag one night while sleeping outside. And our second guest is from Pennsylvania, and he's from the Whitehall area, and he talks about seeing a Thunderbird and having some Sasquatch activity, and he also claims he's seen a UFO. If you guys enjoy Sasquatch Theory, please like and subscribe. And if you have an encounter that you would like to share with me on the channel, please email me at sasquatchtheory@outlook.com. But yeah, guys, with all that being said, let's dive straight into this next episode here on Sasquatch Theory. All right, Mark, welcome to Sasquatch Theory. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Mark, you had a few encounters. If you would, tell us a little bit about yourself and where these encounters took place.
Okay, I'm 55 now. This took place back in the 70s. I grew up in South Dakota in the Black Hills, and these encounters happened we had a family cabin that was in the hills, and it backed up right against the forest, and was not super remote, but still at night it got incredibly dark and scary, especially when I was a child. This happened when I was about, I'm guessing, 6, 7 years of age. We would go to the cabin, for weekends and stuff, and we would always see shadows, movement around the windows, and that would be constant. It got to the point where I would always stay in the center of the cabin, where as far away from the windows as possible at nighttime, because everybody, saw shadows, and then we would hear, knocks on the house. Little small stones would be tossed on the roof, not big ones, like small, like the size of a silver dollar, that kind of thing. But the shadows were the thing that got me, because when I would sleep in the bedroom where the kids would sleep, we had these big windows in the front that faced the front of the house, and shadows would go by that would block out whole windows. I mean, literally, 4-foot windows would be completely blocked out, from the ambient light outside, whether it be the moon or the front porch light. And there's no way any person could do that. I mean, the figure, it's like it would be like somebody carrying a sheet of plywood by. That's the kind of shadow that would go by the house. And this would happen every time we would go out there. We would go out probably once a month. Then we had this thing. I was the youngest of 5 kids, and so when we would all go out there, we started this thing called the Rufters Club, where we would make up these stupid tests of strength and endurance and daring and that kind of thing, and things like running around the cabin outside naked in the snow, 3 times. That kind of stuff was, and then you would get, stay in the club. One of the things was to sleep outside in the backyard of the cabin next to the forest by yourself in a tent. And being a little kid and, following my brothers and wanting to be just like them, I go, I want to do that. And so one night, that was my turn to go sleep outside in a tent, and that's what I did. And so I was a small child, and so at 6, 7, I'm still pretty, tiny person or kid. And so I was just sleeping out there. At first it got pretty, it was a little scary for me, but then as the because when you're a kid, you only have so much time that you can, fight sleep, and then you fall asleep. So I fell asleep inside the tent. It was pretty much pitch black out, and pretty, as far as I remember, it was just dead silent, just quiet as can be. And I fell asleep, and the next thing I know, I had the feeling of being picked up. And as a kid, that's a very common feeling, because you always fall asleep in the car or whatever, and people have to move you. And so I get picked up, and then lifted up and held against, a body, and it was a female because I could feel the bosom, um, and it held me firmly, and I thought it was my mother that picked me up and was bringing me back inside, and saying this is a stupid thing for a little kid to be doing. And then it started moving, and I was still, kind of asleep, and I'm not really understanding what's going on. I'm still thinking I'm being carried inside. But then I start realizing it's walking too far because I'm only 5 steps from the cabin. And then the steps are long, and I then I sense it walking, like stepping over things, like because we had a picket fence around the cabin, but it was only 3 feet high. So I think it just stepping over the fence, and then there's another fence for the Forest Service, for the U.S. Forest, National Forest, and then another step, and then that's when I started kind of waking up a little bit, going, "What's going on? I should be inside by now." And I didn't feel any hair or anything, because I was still in it. Pulled me out in my sleeping bag. I was still in my sleeping bag, so that was what was touching my face, was the bag. And I just felt the steps continue to go and go, and it must have been, oh, probably maybe 50 to, or maybe 75 yards of, I'm guessing, just by the how many steps. And all of a sudden, she just stopped. And then I heard something, kind of like it was a grunt of some sort, but it was a deep guttural sound. And that was a little ways away. And it sounded like it was, um, not happy, but kind of like, almost like a stop, kind of a command. And I'm guessing it was the male Bigfoot or somebody else and what stopped her. And then she just stood there for a while, and then all of a sudden she turned around and walked back and put me back in the tent and walked off. And I was still kind of, at that point of between sleep and being awake. And for some reason, I just fell asleep again. But then I woke up, and I realized that I was backwards. I went in when I slept. My head was to the back of the tent, and my feet were to the door. And when I woke up, I was the opposite direction. And um, that was the abduction. And I'm theorizing that she lost her child, or her little one, and was wanting another, and saw the opportunity. And but the big guy said no, put me back. And so that's pretty much the story. It was just weeks and, I guess, years of seeing shadows and stuff around the place, and then finally one day, that when I was out there, they made contact, and in a big way.
Okay.
And I continue to have that, you know th- that vision in my, head. And I talked to my psychic friend too about it, and I told him, sometimes I think it didn't happen and that I just dreamt it. And no, he said no, it did happen. He said he talked to him and then said it did happen.
Okay, so you
So
were camping out there, and a Sasquatch came and picked you up and took you off into the woods. Is that correct?
correct, yeah, just pulled me out of slid me out of the tent and picked me up like a little burrito and walked me out.
Did you ever get a look at the Sasquatch, or were you asleep the whole time?
I I wasn't I was in the in between. I never got to look at the face or anything. I all I saw was just like because she was holding me pretty firmly, but my head was like I said, I was still in the sleeping bag, and my head was against the sleeping bag. So when she's holding me, my head was kind of covered by the sleeping bag. But I did when I did hear that grunt or sound from the other one, I did hear a bunch of uh, like branches breaking, or when he like big walking, like he was stepping on stuff. But I never did see any of them. I didn't see the her. I just if I saw anything, it would have been just the chest, but it was so dark, it was just black. I couldn't see any definition of anything.
Yeah, and you
But
think these are the same individuals that were coming up to the window?
oh yeah, I think it is. The thing is, next to us was a huge field that deer would come down at night, and then literally there'd be between 50 and 100 deer in that field, and I'm sure that's where they would do like their their hunting and doing their ambush stuff there, because I mean, it's if they really eat deer, I mean that's the place to go. I mean there was plenty to pick from.
Okay, yeah. And do you have more that happened after this, or is that the whole story?
Well, we had more of the, we continue to have the shadows and the movements and the knocks and stuff. We would have things moved around and, um, things taken from the property. We don't know, because we would only go there once a month. So we don't know if that was people that were doing it or what was going on. But yeah, there's and I talked to the psychic again, and he told me that they're still out there at the same place. And so I have gone out there to go camping a few times, but I haven't had any encounters since, other than you know what we talked about earlier.
Okay, Mark. Yeah, I appreciate you sharing your story with me and your experiences. Let's see. You said you lived by a national forest. Is that correct?
Yes, the Black Hills National Forest.
Okay. So you feel like these beings were coming out of that forest and up to your guys' property?
Yeah, I mean the thing about the Black Hills National Forest, there's more private property here in this national forest than any other national forest. So there's cabins and properties just spotted all over the in areas. So there's a lot of secluded places that are just surrounded by all three sides by national forest.
Yeah, yeah, that is cool. Okay. Well, I appreciate you for sharing your story and for your willingness to tell your experiences here on the show.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you listening, and I do have an idea what I was told of what they are, and I know that sometimes you ask that question. I don't know,
Yeah.
but
What do you think they are?
from well, I think they are genetically engineered by, you know, I wouldn't say, well, aliens, extraterrestrials. I think that we are genetically engineered as well. And I was told by my friend that they are, or I read somewhere, or so, I can't remember exactly where I heard it, but that they're a genetic cross between humans and the giant lemur of, you know, back when after the dinosaurs, when you had all the big, warm-blooded animals, the but that's what they say. It's the giant lemur. The giant lemur at the time was, huge. It was like an 8, 10 foot animal. So if you do those, you mix those two and you do it the right way, I figured you could come out with something like that.
Yeah, yeah, that
But
is very interesting.
yeah, I do believe they have, because I've heard that the genetics have been, people have found that their majority of it is human, and so I do think they are engineered, and they were engineered for a purpose to protect the forests and protect the earth from things, but they've now come up against us where we got so much stuff that destroys things that I don't know if they can do anything, to help because we're doing a good job destroying the planet right now.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So, but that's pretty much the story, and I appreciate you listening.
Yeah, and if you ever encounter anything else, feel free to contact me. And yeah, I hope you have a good day. And
Oh,
we'll,
absolutely, you
we'll
too.
keep in touch.
Okay, sounds good, sir.
All right. Take care, Mark.
All right, take care.
Bye. All right, moving on to Freddy's Encounters from Pennsylvania. All right, Freddy, welcome to Sasquatch Theory. How are you doing today, sir?
Fantastic, Miguel. I'm real happy to be talking to you today and being a guest on your show.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, and I'm glad to have you on the show. Freddy, if you would, tell us a little bit about yourself and your Bigfoot encounter and experiences from the very beginning, please.
Okay, not a problem. So, yeah, my name is Freddy. My encounter happened in the Lehigh Valley in Pennsylvania. So that's the Allentown, Bethlehem, Easton area, and I've always pretty much been into cryptids and all that stuff. Like, it's from a young age, like watching stuff on cable TV about Bigfoot and a lot of stuff about UFOs. That stuff used to freak me out as a kid. I actually did saw one, a UFO. If you wanted to get into that later on after
Yeah,
my encounter, but
yeah,
I was
absolutely.
pretty young with that one. But the encounter that we're talking about today is a bit different, I think, from what I've seen on your channel. Essentially, I believe I saw a Thunderbird, a big old giant bird that has affected me quite a bit to this day. So, at the time, I was actually living in my car. I drive a 2020 Subaru WRX. I love this thing, and I had just woken up. It was an overcast day. It had been storming overnight, and that was a pretty fun experience to sleep through that. Very relaxing. It was about 7 in the morning, sometime between 6 and 7 in the morning, and I was at the Whitehall, Pennsylvania Walmart Supercenter. Actually, that was one of my go-to spots to just hunker down for the night there. And I had just woken up, and I had my seat fully reclined all the way back, and I was just gazing up at the overcast skies, and I'm still groggy a little bit, still waking up, and I see like soaring over way up in the clouds, way up high up there. It was under the clouds, but it was really, really high up there. It was just this oversized, humongous bird, and I don't use the word humongous lightly. Like, this thing it was just ridiculously big, and it was soaring through the air, very slowly, like flapping its huge wings, and it was something that I saw for maybe about 8 to 10 seconds, from my windshield. I was looking up at it, like, just like, what the heck is that? Like, your brain races when you see something that doesn't make sense like that. So I'm like, all right, well, that's way too big to be like a crow or something. Like, we have in that area, we have turkey vultures and bald eagles. bald eagles being a lot rarer to see in that area. And those are the two biggest birds. I looked that up after the fact, and I was just sat there, just awestruck, looking at this thing. And like the wingspan was just absurdly big, and it was just flapping like really slow, but like that slow and powerful type of you know, like flying flapping, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And the the distance, like the elevation, like this thing was so high up in the air, and yet it was like you can like see like an airplane, right? Like if you can imagine like an airplane way up there, it's just cruising up in the air, and you see it just, like slowly gliding across the air. It was like one of those situations. It's way high up, but it's still moving pretty fast, so it's just, like going across the air, and that's what this thing was doing. It was ridiculously big, way high up there, and it was just moving really quickly. Like, so the way that I was parked in the parking lot, I was all the way in the back of the parking lot. It was a huge parking lot at that Walmart, and this thing, I used to know the directions, but this thing came. I believe from it came from the east, and it was headed west, and so it came from over the Walmart, and that's when I first noticed it. I was like, "What the heck is that?" And it was just this big black bird way up in there because it was overcast, so I couldn't really catch any of the specific like color, like what color it was, or any of its like finer details. And then, for across those 8 seconds, every like couple of seconds, it would do a flap, just like one big powerful like whoosh as it was gliding over. And one of the things that made me wonder, just like, just what the heck is that? Like, that isn't like a low flying big bird, you know what I mean? Like, like I mentioned, that's not like a low flying bald eagle or something, because it kind of it had like a pterodactyl vibe to it, like a pterodactyl vulture vibe to it. And I would have been okay if it had just been that. But one of the things that really stood out as far as like the features of this thing, the silhouette, was its tail feathers. It had one long tail feather that was like streaking behind it, almost like if you look up like a picture of the mythical phoenix. A lot of those depictions will have like a really long tail feather. You know what I mean? Like just sticking out of its like little tail fan situation,
Yeah.
and and that just extended its overall length by just an absurd amount. And it had like a longish neck, which is where like the kind of pterodactyl vulture vibe comes in. It had a kind of long neck, and like a pointed head area. Pretty small head though, and just the wingspan was just shocking. So I'm not gonna lie, I honestly did think about my phone to capture it, but you know how it is. Like you're kind of awestruck, but at the same time, I've been when I saw that, this was back in 2022. It was on September 11th, actually. September 11th, 2022, at around 6 to 7 a.m. after I woke up. And at that time, I had been pretty much going down the Sasquatch rabbit hole. I had been watching your channel quite a bit, all of your interviews, your field research, the emails. I'd also been watching a buttload of other folks. I don't know if you want me to name drop them, but um, there are lots of email shares
Mhm.
of people and their encounters. And I mentioned that because at the time, I just got the impression, from listening to you and these other folks talking about cryptids, is that like I felt like if I looked away for a second to fiddle with my phone and like bring up the camera and try to get a good image, like the thing would be gone or disappear or something. So that was like, this is like 10 seconds. So like a fraction of that was a thought that went to my head. So before I lost sight of the thing, because it flew over some trees, I did actually step out of my car because I was like, it had been raining. Is my windshield distorting what I'm seeing? Like maybe there's like a raindrop somehow that's like causing an optical illusion. I don't know. So for about like the last second, I stepped out of my car, opened my door, and I'm just looking up. And yeah, the thing was still there. It was still huge. It was still way up in the air and just going stupid fast. And it still had that weird tail and all that stuff. And
What time of
pretty
year was it?
much, this was September.
September 11th, and
Yeah.
you said it was raining out?
It had been raining the night prior, so it was a heavy overcast.
Okay. And
Yeah.
have you ever seen that photo online where this guy's standing next to like this cryptid bird? I guess like a taxidermist or something. I don't know if you ever seen it. It's kind of an old school photo, but it kind of looks like a ginormous crow. Did it kind of look like that? I mean, you said you couldn't see any color, so I'm assuming it was dark looking.
Yeah, it was just a black figure. Yeah.
Okay.
But I have seen and I did other, like I watched a few videos of other people in Pennsylvania who did see Thunderbirds, and the photo that you mentioned, it does ring a bell. Um, but this thing was just gigantic for how high up in the air it was. It was like just below the overcast clouds, and it was way up there. It was just huge, Miguel. Since then, it's been almost like since 2022. Every time I see a bird soaring up, in a similar fashion, I have to. I'm compelled. I can't help myself but check to see how high up it is, how fast it is, and how big it looks. And I'm like, a part of me is just like, man, like if I see this thing, then maybe I wasn't hallucinating. You know what I mean? Again, but then at the same time, it's like I kind of don't want to see that thing again. It was just so mind bending. It'll like stop my whole day. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I
And
thought that
then,
was something just out west. There's a researcher called Robert Kreider, and
uh-huh.
he claims that he's seen a thunderbird before, and he has actually found evidence of like huge nest and cracked open eggs,
Whoa.
things like that. Yeah, check out Robert Kreider, really good guy, and he does some interesting research.
Yeah. So you mentioned, like the area and how you thought it was out west. I mean, I was in one of the things that made me doubt what my own eyes saw, you know what I mean, was the fact that I was in a Walmart parking lot. Like what? What? Why there? And it's not like I was out in the middle of nowhere. You know what I mean? Like the Lehigh Valley is a fairly well populated area. It's between Harrisburg and Philadelphia, and the Lehigh Valley. It's three little cities, but there Allentown is a fairly famous Pennsylvania, and it's got a pretty good population. And I was right next to those places, so I'm just like what's why here in Whitehall and in this parking lot at Walmart? Like what the heck? But
You said Whitehall? I've heard a lot of
yeah,
UFO encounters from Whitehall and cryptid
what
encounters as
really?
well. Yeah.
So I mean, hey, there it is, and well, that does make me feel a little bit better, at least, honestly, because it was just so baffling to me anyway about my location. I mean, besides the fact that what I saw was ridiculous, it was also baffling about where I was that I saw it. Like, and I'm so super curious because this was a Walmart super center. Like, there had to have been other people at that parking lot looking up when I was looking up. You know what I mean? Like, so like it would just be great to know if anybody else has seen a Thunderbird and on that day. Like it was September 11th, 2022. 6 to 7 a.m. Shout outs in the comments if you've seen that thing too, because oh man, I need some validation. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Help Freddy out, guys. If you've seen a Thunderbird, let me know in the comments. Contact me by email. Um, I've seen
Yes.
the Bigfoot mapping project, and there is a ton of reports in Pennsylvania. And also, there's like this UFO, I'm not sure what it's called, but I'm going to call it the UFO mapping project. There is a
Uh-huh.
cluster of UFO encounters there. And I mean, it seems like it's one of the hottest spots in North America. Also, like, there's a lot of things going on in Ohio, Pennsylvania, West Virginia. And I don't know what the deal is, but I find it interesting that Ohio has like the Serpent Mount, and Pennsylvania has all kinds of history regarding paranormal activity, cryptid encounters, and the
Oh
UFO
yes.
phenomenon. So, have you ever had a UFO encounter? I know you briefly mentioned it earlier.
Yes. When I was a lot smaller, I was living in Elizabeth, New Jersey, my hometown. Um, yeah, I don't really like to associate with that place anymore. It's kind of a dump, but but anyway, yeah, I was in Elizabeth, New Jersey, which is like essentially a suburb of New York City. So again, this is a very densely populated area. Um, so I was in fourth grade, so this must have been like the mid '90s. Um, and I was playing just on the street, just doing kid stuff, running around, doing whatever. And then I don't know who shouted it out, but it was at the end of the road, and it was like, "Whoa, what is that up there, over there?" And it was this metallic object hovering over this building, and it had like weird lights. And in my memory, it's almost like it was like blurry, as if it was like hard to like focus in on and look at. You know what I mean? Like if you need glasses and you're trying to look at something from a distance, and it's just blurry and out of focus, and you can't read like the letters. That's kind of how this metallic object was in the air. And so after I saw it, there was like three other kids, my brother included, and he remembers the story. So yeah, and he was like, yeah, I definitely remember that. But so after we saw it, we ran down the street to get a closer look, because the street lights and all that. And by the time we got to the end of the road to get a closer look, the thing was just gone. I personally didn't see it move or really do anything besides just be there. But I didn't hear any noises, or there was no buzzing. I know that's a common thing, like that buzzing in your ear. It
Mhm.
was just a situation where we just saw this metallic, kind of oval shaped object with like, maybe they were lights or details, but just like an oval shape. It wasn't like that classic like saucer shape. It was more oval, almost like a flat type of egg. And it was kind of brief. I don't know. Maybe my whole testimony is a nothing burger, but that's what I saw with the UFO.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll have to tell me, have you ever had a paranormal encounter, heard like a voice and you couldn't see, the figure, anything like that, any shadow people?
No. I would have to say that those two things are definitely the weirder things that I've seen. Um, I mean, I do have a potential uh situation where maybe a squatch was following us down a trail. um we had pretty much hiked up this trail. It was pretty steep, difficult trail. This is in the Lehigh Valley again, or maybe somewhere outside it, in Pennsylvania. And we had lost track of time, and we were headed down off the trail, and we were doing that in the darkness. We just had our cell phones and our lights, so it was pitch dark out there without our lights. And we had even lost the trail, and so we were just going straight down. I was like, listen, as long as we keep going down, we're gonna be fine. And we heard like a growl, maybe. And at the time, I kind of brushed it off as maybe like a Harley, like way off in the distance, and the echoes of that Harley, vrooming. But uh, I don't know about that. Like, there weren't really any. It was getting late, and there weren't really any like highways or roads nearby us, because it was like a pretty mountainous trail. And
Yeah.
then it kind of stirred us to like just get the heck off of that trail and get down off of that little mountain type of a situation. And so I look back and I'm like, that wasn't a Harley. So it leads me to believe that like the more likely thing would be like a mountain lion or something, right? Like what growls up on a mountain. It could have been like a mountain lion or something. But if it was, then wouldn't one of us be dead or something? Like if that thing was growling at us, like it would have wanted to eat us. I'm thinking, right? Like I
Hmm.
don't know. I'm not much of an outdoorsman. Like I play a lot of video games and, and stuff like that. So uh,
How long?
I don't know. Like
How long were you out there?
so. We were out there for like maybe 2 hours before sunset, and then it was like pitch black, and maybe like an hour after sun went down. This was maybe like 5-10 years ago, so the details are kind of fuzzy for me.
Yeah.
But
Well, it seems like if you spend time in the outdoors, these things will follow people out.
right, and that's what I'm thinking. It's like if this thing wasn't a cougar, you know what I mean? Like usually those things, if they're gonna growl at you, they're usually like, you know what I mean? Like an animal like that isn't going to make its presence known before it comes and gets you. You know what I mean? So why would a cougar be growling at me? So yeah, like the friend that I was with, um, it was me and her, and then her child. He was like maybe 7 years old, and I was in the back, and she was in the front, and the kid was in the middle. So if it was a cougar, maybe it was growling because it wanted the kid to eat the kid. You know what I mean? And it couldn't because I was in the way or something. Maybe I was too much of a threat. I'm not a big guy either, but I don't know. There's that, but then like you mentioned, if it was a squatch, it probably was just pissed that we were still on that mountain because it is a well-known, maybe not a well-known trail, but it is a well-traveled hiking trail, that little mountain, and maybe it was just pissed that there were still people there. And from what I understand, now that trail is closed off, which is another red flag. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, it sounds like they're
So
possibly in that area. And
it could
they've
be.
been known to stalk women and children. So you had the perfect recipe.
Yes.
And also going out right before it gets dark and right after dark. That's when these things come out.
Yes. And I'll tell you what, I also did see like uh stacks of rocks, and that could have easily been uh the people going through the trail and just leaving a little memento. And I even contributed a little stack. But I know that's a Squatch behavior from listening to you and other email shares, that they'll just stack rocks and stuff like that. And it looked like there was also just really old stone structures. So it was a good recipe for potentially being you know a minor Squatch encounter. I don't know what class that would be. Um,
Could you
I
hear
didn't hear any
bipedal
stomp.
footsteps?
No, I was about to mention I didn't hear any footsteps or anything. I mean, maybe. I don't think so. The main thing about the encounter that I recall is just like that odd growl, which I just wrote off as a Harley motor. But like usually when they're riding their Harleys, you know what I mean? Like they don't just let it rip for just like a little bit and then you don't hear anything. You know what I mean? Like they might rev it up, or like as they're zooming past it'll you'll like hear it like crescendo and then slowly go away. But I feel like it was definitely an a growl that came from a creature, and so that's why I keep gravitating. It was either a squatch or a mountain lion.
Yeah, yeah, it sounds like it. And it's hard to say if every experience and encounter you had is connected, but it possibly
Right.
could be. There's people that mention like ultra terrestrial beings, and supposedly they're able to like manipulate our matrix, and basically it's one and the same. But it's hard to say if these things are actually physical creatures that are out there or
Mm.
some type of manipulation of our existence.
Um, I mean, if you would ask me what these things what the squatches are, I would definitely say they are uh, physical creatures that just have an advanced connection to nature, and whatever holds all of this, you know, together. They can manipulate frequencies and energy, and so to me that's my understanding as to why they can do all the the supernatural things that they can do, even though they're physical creatures. That's
Yeah.
just my opinion on what the Squatches are.
Yeah, I would agree. Let's
And
see.
hmm
How long do you think the wingspan was on the Thunderbird? I know that's kind of hard to gauge with how high up it was, but how long do
yeah.
you think it was from wing to wing?
So, and again, I'm not an outdoorsman by any stretch of the imagination. It would be cool to be, but um, I would have to compare it to, again, the two biggest birds in PA, to my understanding, the turkey vulture and the bald eagle. I think the bald eagle is they're bigger on average, and I would have to say that they were probably like three or four of those birds. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like three or four times bigger than one of those birds. So if you would figure out like the wingspan of one of those creatures, what is it, 8 or something, times that by four, maybe like three to four times that big. It was huge. Like when it flapped its wings, like it like took a while for like the whole thing to come up and then to come down. And yeah, so like if you compare that to like a little chickadee, those things are flapping like crazy. And if you see it like a vulture, it'll do its flap every once in a while. But this thing's wingspan was just enormous. It was so big.
Yeah, yeah, and I believe you. I've seen bald eagles way up there, hawks and planes, and it's like, man, that looks small way up there. But when you get close to it, it's like,
Exactly.
man, that's ginormous. So if it looked big up in
Yes,
the sky, it had to been something unusual.
absolutely. It was just too big and too high up there, and it was moving pretty decently fast for it to be just a normal creature. And um, from what I've heard, a lot of the legends about them. I watched like a video or two. I probably should do a bit more research on these thingies, but I always found the Sasquatch phenomenon to be more interesting. But from what I heard about the Thunderbirds is that like they're often like heralds of tough times, of bad news, and to be honest, it's been a crazy 2023 for me. It was a crazy friggin' year for me, and I saw this thing near the end of 2022. So I mean, maybe that tracks. I don't know, but uh, yeah. So
Yeah.
um,
I don't want to get too personal, but are you religious? Do you believe in Christ?
yes. I definitely believe that we're living in an intelligently designed, uh, some kind of an intelligently designed just world of some kind. You know what I mean? Like a universe, or like a dimension of some kind. And I do believe that a creator is responsible for making all of this. I definitely do believe that Jesus happened. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of hard to deny that he wasn't a guy that was doing stuff.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
a lot of
exactly.
like evidence. You know what I mean? So like,
Mm.
um, now was he the the son of the creator, God? You know what I mean, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know. I'm not like a devout Christian or anything. I don't really go to church. I wouldn't mind reading the Bible, but I mean the main reason why I believe in the creator and Jesus and all of that is because of the email shares that I've listened to on your channel and others, where people will be getting harassed by Sasquatch and other cryptids, and they rebuke them in the name of Jesus. And after hearing that over and over and over again, you just have to be like, well, there has to be something to this. Like there's a pattern going on here, and there's all this crazy stuff that science is doing jack squat to help us with and explain.
Hmm.
And so eventually I just came to the conclusion that like there has to be something intelligent that's creating and manipulating the world and the universe that we live in.
It has to be just because these cryptid creatures kind of um defy logic. And if the
Yes.
theory of evolution was true, where do these cryptid creatures stand? And I honestly liked it whenever I was a kid and they taught evolution and the Bible. Like they let you choose, but nowadays it's just like evolution is just a theory, but it's fact for science, and they dismiss the Bible. I liked it when they let us choose.
Yeah, I can definitely agree, and shoot, maybe you can even land somewhere in the middle, because I definitely still, value science, but at the same time, there's just so much stuff that science can't explain, and then there's the folks who believe in science as like dogma, that, like, if it's not scientifically factual, then it's not real, and that's just crazy. You know what I mean? Like, people are seeing weird stuff all the time, and now I'm definitely one of those. So it's hard to deny. Like, science can't explain that huge thing that I saw flying through the air. So, you know what I mean?
Mm,
So
yeah.
I'm somewhere in the middle, somewhere in the gray area of, yeah, of all that.
Well, that's good. Yeah, and I'm sure having a sighting like that will open up your mind to new possibilities, wonders, and just things that have been mentioned in the past that can't scientifically be proven.
Correct. Yes.
Do you think you're going to have another encounter in the future, or do you think that's it?
No, I think I'm gonna have a. Yeah, I do. I do believe I'll have something else happen, because um even before seeing the Thunderbird, I had been listening to even Les Stroud talk about uh the phenomenon, and then you, and then others. And so there are times where I just can't help when there's a heavily wooded area to, like, look for sign. You know what I mean? Like the arches, the X's, and just see if there's like some weird creature looking back at me. I have to check and see, and, and I feel like eventually maybe I will. Who knows?
Yeah, yeah. And if you do, I hope it's a positive encounter.
Oh, I hope so. Yeah, I hope I don't get screamed at. That sounds like a really piss your pants terrible experience to have happen to you.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, if I feel like there's any activity, I'm definitely gonna, just try to mind speak to them, and just be like, listen, guys, I'm not trying to intrude on anything, you know what I mean, and do that whole spiel. I'm just here to enjoy the nature, just like you are, and or maybe even I'll say it out loud. It's there's just so much crazy stuff, you know what I mean? Like, the whole mind speak thing is insane. But if that doesn't work, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like, I'll
Hmm.
just try to bargain with them or reason with them. Like, listen, man, I'm just passing through. Please don't throw rocks at me.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You mentioned that you like to play video games. I was thinking about getting the game called Way of the Hunter, and I think it's by the same creators that made Call of the Wild. Have you ever played that?
I have not, but I'm on YouTube a lot, and I do see people play it. It seems like a pretty fun game. I
Yeah,
think you should check it out.
yeah.
'Cause I know you're a hunter yourself, so you can do some of that, but in video game form.
Right. I got Far Cry 4, but I wanted to get the expansion where you can go to the Valley of the Yeti. That looked kind of cool.
Oh, that sounds cool. I played Far Cry 3, but not 4. I didn't know they had a Yeti expansion.
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty cool. Um, let's see. Does that pretty well cover your story? Do you have any questions for me? Anything else you'd like to add?
No, just the fact that like I mentioned prior, I've been watching your channel for quite a long time. Like a lot of people, I'm pretty sure I started with the Killing Fields. I feel like you do a lot of awesome work. Um, I try to drop as much comments as I can, because I know that helps you out,
Yeah, yeah, I
and yeah,
appreciate that.
like, I watch a lot of YouTube, and when you have an upload, I always try to watch it within like the first day or two, which is saying a lot, because I don't like the algorithm feed crap. That just pisses me off. I don't like getting spoon fed, so I go through my subscription feed instead. And when I see one of your videos, I'm like, oh man, I gotta watch that. So yeah,
I
it's
appreciate
it's
that.
definitely wild to be talking to you right now.
Yeah, man, I'm glad we get to talk too. I think we've been commenting back and forth for a while now, haven't we?
Yes. I've probably left a salty comment maybe once or twice, probably about the research organization.
Mm.
I don't even like to give them attention, but you had one guy. doing some stuff, and I was like, what is this? But generally, I'm just like, yeah, like, awesome stuff. I try not to, be nasty or anything, and I always
Oh
try
no,
to
you're fine.
support.
I try to be the same way too. What was your favorite part about the killing fields? Like, what do you like to see?
Oh man. I mean, I just feel like just you being out there, and especially in the dark. Like, I believe your most recent video at the time of this recording was you had interviewed David, and then it was a video afterwards, and you were just in the dark, and you had your night vision camera, and you were looking at the and it was cold out there, and man, like that is just nuts, you know what I mean? And then there was like hoot owls. So I don't know, like I don't really need like action, you know what I mean? I just like uh, watching you just like boots on the ground type of situation, you know what I mean? Like you're actually out there. And you even had your own little rants about people who are giving you crap, and they're not out there like you are. So it's like, yeah, this is awesome stuff. Um but yeah, I mean, just like sign, I guess, like just weird like carcasses, tree formations.
Okay.
Man, if you got a like footage of like an orb or something, that would be nuts. So I mean, I don't know. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. I've just wondered, like, do people like just the interviews, or do they like me going out there doing research? It's kind of hard to tell, like, what makes those videos popular. But I'm glad you shared your feedback, just because it gives me insight, and I guess people just want to see me getting out there, and they like the Bigfoot topic in general.
Definitely. I definitely enjoy the topic in general. And I also like watching people camp. So I mean that happens a lot when you're out there doing research, and then um yeah, just watching you just like physically looking at stuff. Like when you had that theory about the rocks, and how like, like what is this rock doing fresh on, like that was fascinating to think about. And every once in a while stuff will happen to you, and so yeah, I mean, it's all good to me, man. Like I mentioned, I watch every one of your uploads. So
Well, that makes me feel better, just because when I go out on these trips, like, you can't always just find a Sasquatch and film it. And the fact that people just
yeah,
want to see me getting out there, that gives me more confidence, because sometimes you're just way out there in the middle of nowhere. There's no one around, no conversation. It's
yep,
like, what do I film? But I just started filming anything and everything.
yeah, and I mean that's the best way to do it. I feel like, because they definitely know that you're out there, and your batteries are getting drained, and it's like, are they like feeding off of that, or is it like something in the air or something on the ground or something? You mentioned that in that video too, when you were talking to David. You're like, man, I bet you there's something going on the ground. I'm like, oh my goodness, like that's, who knows, like.
Yeah, yeah, that
So
reminded me of like the Skinwalker Ranch when they start digging, like the guy's cell phone's just going crazy and it's flipping through every single app, calling like 911 and calling like all kinds of numbers. And it happened to
that's
like
nuts.
several people out there. And I think you're right. It has something to do with something in the ground. It could be like the energy from the rocks, or some type of phenomenon happening down below. People mention like the hollow earth theory. I think that's real. I mean, I don't really know. I just
Mm,
speculate, and the fact that we don't find any bones of the Sasquatch, or I don't know, like UFOs coming out of mountains and things like that. There's got to be something going on, because I don't know, even I think it was Phil Schneider. He was
mm,
working for the government, and basically like they would bore underground tunnels with machinery, and he was contracted by them. And he talks about like these reptilian beings that they saw underneath the ground, and he showed like the fingers he was missing after these things hit him with like this, I don't know, like a laser beam or
what?
something. And he lifted up his shirt, and like he had this ginormous scar going down his belly. But he got killed after that. He died after that. It's like, man, that guy was telling the truth. There's something going
Oh
on.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. There's weird stuff going on. I always feel like where there's smoke, you know what I mean, there's fire. And so when you have these people like myself, and even more well-known folks talking about this stuff, and then they suddenly disappear or die, it's just like, well, that's awfully strange. Like in your intro to one of your more recent videos, you mentioned JFK, saying how there's more going on, and all that, and then all of a sudden he's assassinated. So it's like, You know, all of that is just red flags. It's smoke. You know what I mean? So like,
Yeah, and
where's
the
the fire?
things that happened to his family afterwards, that's unusual too. I mean, it seemed like
Hmm.
they were all being attacked. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, hopefully
And
that
it just
doesn't
gets
happen to
written off
me.
as tragic. Yeah, definitely not, man. Like, I want to keep on watching your videos and watch you get better, man. Like, you've been getting so much better at like just like the production values. I remember the first Killing Fields. You had some rough edits in there, but I like, who cares? Like, the stuff that you were recording was so phenomenal, and now you fast forward to now, and it's just really good stuff.
Well, I appreciate it, man, and I'll be uploading part 3 of the Killing Fields today or tomorrow, so you'll have that to look forward to.
Nice, absolutely.
Okay, man. Well, I think that pretty well covers your story, and it was really good talking to you, man. Like, everything you had to say really opened up my mind, and if I ever see a Thunderbird, I'm going to try to film it, and you'll be the first person I send that video to.
Oh, awesome, dude. I definitely would like to see it because I was you're probably more, you have a better headspace for getting your whipping out your phone. And I was just like, man, if I look away, this thing is gonna be gone, or something, or my phone is like gonna screw up because I hate fiddling with my phones. I'm 36 years old and I didn't grow up with phones, and I don't like to just record everything. I just want to see it. I want to be present and now. So it wasn't in my instinct to just just start recording. I would be fumbling. So yeah, it would be awesome to see your video, man, or if somebody else has seen something about something similar to that.
Yeah, I can relate to that. One time I seen like this triangle craft slowly float over my house, and it's like, do I want to go inside and get my camera and miss it, or do I want to stand out here so I can tell the story?
Exactly. And
Yeah.
and man, and I've tried to tell some people about it, and they were just like, oh, like my one friend, when I mentioned the tail, it was like, it must have been a mutated turkey vulture, and I'm just like, what? It's like, man, thanks for the bird information, but man, that thing wasn't mutated. It was, if it was, it's from someplace else, man.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
definitely didn't want to look away, man.
Yeah, I don't blame you. All right, Freddie. Well, I appreciate you for sharing your experiences, your encounters, and hopefully, if you have something else happen in the future, I'll hear back from you and we can talk more.
Definitely, I'll hit you up.
All right, man. I'll see you in the comments. I'll let you get back to work, and you have a good day, sir.
Thanks, you too.
All right. Take care.
Bye bye.
Bye. All right, I appreciate both of you guys for getting in contact with me and sharing your encounters and experiences. And South Dakota, it certainly seems like a remote area. You don't really hear a lot about that state. And Pennsylvania, there's a lot of stuff going on there. And I noticed that with the Bigfoot mapping project, there were all kinds of markers on that map in Pennsylvania. So it seems like there's a lot of stuff going on there, and I'm not sure what the connection is. And I really do believe it could have something to do with these underground bases that people are always talking about, but it's hard to gather information about that just because everything seems to be a little mixed up, and no one really seems to know what's going on. And the whistleblowers that do talk about these things going on underneath the ground seem to just disappear. And there's always something different. When you hear about a new whistleblower, he always has a new piece of information to share. So it's kind of hard to connect all the dots, but I guess in time, we will all know. But yeah, I appreciate everyone for listening, and if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, give it a thumbs up, and if you have a Sasquatch story that you would like to share with me here on the channel, please contact me at sasquatchtheory@outlook.com. Thank you everyone for listening. Take care and be safe out there.